Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and it has been quite a while since I've done this. So, just for a little bit of inside baseball, I did have the part for the Air Arcana section of the tier list done, but I didn't like how it turned out at the time, and then all sorts of other things got in the way of me finishing it or redoing it to a point where I was happy with it. So that's what this is me coming back to this and getting started on finishing a project that I had started. So I want to first apologize for it taking so long. But more importantly, here we are to discuss the Air Elemental Signature Arcana for Wizard of Legend. Now, I don't know if I properly went over my criteria for how I'm grading these in the first two parts. That doesn't mean that that does not mean that the original rankings that I did for the fire and water ones I'm going to go back on, because I'm actually pretty happy with where things turned out. But to give you guys a reminder or to fully and properly explain it, I'm grading these Arcana based upon their damage, their ease of use, like how they perform, not just as a signature, but also as just a regular spell before the signature gets charged. And I also take into account other interactions that they have in the game that can make them more useful. So versatility. So damage, ease of use, versatility, and overall utility. That's what I'm looking at when I'm grading these. And of course, they're being graded on a 5-point scale, where S grade is overall great, no real complaints. Then slowly degrading into D grade, which is using them can actively harm your run. And as you can see, there are only 2 down there. And I know that there will be some disagreement with that, but overall, that's how I feel about them. Do I think that anything in the air elemental will be actively harmful? Not 100% sure. Maybe 1. But there's only one way to find out. Now, now that I've gone over all of that, I hope we're all doing well. I hope we're in a good place. Get out of here. As per usual, I would suggest that if you want to have a discussion about the tier listings, the rankings, whatever, by all means, I welcome the discourse, so long as we keep it civil. If you're just going to start calling names or you're going to start being super rude to people, then we can always just shut that down. That is not what we're here for. I am also now realizing that one of these spells is not properly in here. This must be some problem with the tier maker itself, but Whirling Tornado does not seem to be in here for whatever reason. But we're gonna quick go over that one first, because obviously I don't have an image for it. I'll try to add it in later, but we are in the middle of recording now, but okay. So, let's get started with Whirling Tornado. Whirling Tornado, as you can see, has a circular area of effect centered around you. It looks like a 6-second cooldown, if I am not mistaken on how I'm reading that. Yeah, 6-second cooldown at base, and as for damage, so total damage of 58, so it looks like it does... Well, that had a critical hit in there, so that does 4 more damage than usual. Looks like it does 7 hits, 7 at 8 damage, or 6 at 8 damage for a total of 48, and then 1 final knockback hit at 10 damage for a total of 58. Obviously, good for crowd control. It keeps enemies away from you, especially with that knockback hit. And there's not really a whole lot else to say about it. It's, decent range, got an okay duration. I want to see if you can set it and then start walking away from it, so that is one thing you can do. So now, how does the signature behave? Very similarly, actually. So as you can see, the damage is a little bit greater. One thing that I have learned about this one is after you cast it, you can sort of direct the straight line that it flies out and cause it to, like, curve, making it a little bit easier to hit enemies with. I believe also getting enemies within the range of multiple tornadoes does hit them with multiple tornadoes worth of damage. So if you can find a way to clip an enemy in between a couple of the tornadoes, you can, like, one thing I'm noticing is that I'm trying to get it to, like, circle back on itself, which kind of works. There's a funny timing with it that's, but yeah, I can't cause it to, like, circle. I can't cause it to do, like, this. At least I don't think I can. But if we do it, like, yeah, no, it doesn't have that kind of trajectory. I can't cause it to curve like that. But anyway, my feelings on this are that you've got yourself a pretty decent. Oh, there's Whirling Tornado right there in the images. I'm just dumb. Alright. Self-deprecation aside, I feel that this one has plenty of use just as a regular Arcana. As a signature, it's pretty good for room clearing. It's good as a nice little panic get off me button. And then giving you a little bit of breathing room. Definitely good for that. As a signature, I think it's not necessarily super lacking in damage, but getting it to do its damage or its full potential is difficult to near impossible considering the overlapping hitboxes. I think it's good for room clearing, bad against bosses. As for where I would rank it in the tier list, my thought is, like, it's not actively bad, it's just underwhelming. So I think I would put it at low B. That seems like the right spot for right spot for Whirling Tornado. And next, we're going to get into Tearing Whirlwind. Now, I know a lot of you really like this one, and it's for good reason, but let's get into it. What is Tearing Whirlwind? Tearing Whirlwind is a mobile melee attack that lets you move and spin and drag enemies with you. It also leaves those enemies right next to you, allowing for great combo ability. Now, it's because each hit does 10 damage. That means that what you've got is 10 hits overall throughout the spell for a total of 50 damage. Now, obviously, they're all going to take different damage because they got hit by different hitboxes throughout the means of the spell. So this spell is very good for catching and dragging enemies and maneuvering them around. But once the spell is over, you're going to be immediately in their strike zone unless you cancel it into another spell or a dash. Kind of like that. I also believe you can dash cancel the spell. Well, you cannot dash cancel the spell early. So this spell just requires good timing to get yourself out of it, which means that this spell, in order to really be at its peak, requires a specific setup. And generally that setup will be something along the lines of Whirling Tornado, and then you add in something like... something that hits all around you, like as I had just highlighted, the Searing Crown. Some of the combos that tend to go along with Tearing Whirlwind are things like Storm Entourage and Tearing Whirlwind, because this sets you up with orbitals that are going to keep your enemies stunned. The Prime combo that goes along with this is Cardus Prime. Now, typically you want Cardus Prime to be upgraded, but the idea is that you set up something that allows you to damage the enemies even further while keeping them within the area of effect of that spell. That's definitely what you want out of Tearing Whirlwind. Alright, the spell in and of itself has a 6.5 second cooldown, and obviously is going to work great for melee builds because it allows you to drag enemies into your range and then just tear them up. So this is a kind of favored setup for Dark Katana builds. As far as the signature, it's just Tearing Whirlwind, but bigger and badder. Like, it has all of the same properties, but it also has that initial hitbox that hits for 30 and drags enemies into you from a distance. Okay, 25 then. Alright, screw me, I guess. Oh, I see, because that initial, like, drag hitbox plus the first hitbox of the Whirlwind itself are overlapping, so they just add their damage together. Now, I will say that this does great against regular enemies. Against bosses, especially the ones that recover from their hit stun pretty quickly after they lose their barrier, Tearing Whirlwind sometimes just doesn't leave you enough time to combo properly. And also on top of that, enemies that aren't affected by knockback in general can be dangerous to deal with Tearing Whirlwind. Like, it doesn't necessarily leave you in a dangerous position, but it has the potential to put you in a dangerous position, and then just kind of leave you there. So, this is a weird one to rank, because by itself, it kind of ranks down in the C tier. With an obvious combo to go with it, it ranks up closer to A. Now, my criteria typically involve me ranking things as they stand, so you're going to be upset with me, but I'm going to go with the C tier ranking. And that is mostly because, by itself, it does have the potential to leave you in harm's way. Like, you really need a good follow-up or a good way to get out of harm's way after the spell is over, since you can't cancel out of it mid-cast. So hopefully we all understand that. It's not that I hate Tearing Whirlwind, it's that I think that it's got some issues that could stand to be ironed out. Now, we're not going to get any more updates for the game naturally, so maybe if there's a modder that wants to take it on, but like I said, with the right combo, it's definitely closer to a mid-tier A rank spell, but by itself, I gotta call it like I see it. And like I said, I know some of you are going to be upset with that, but that's just how I see it. It's the most objective way to rank it. Now, let's move on to Airborne Slam. You saw me go over there and pick this one up, and you guys know how I feel about a good jump Arcana. This is definitely a good jump Arcana. It gets you into the air quickly, which, as you know, while you're in the air, you are invulnerable to enemy attacks. And then you come crashing down, like just barreling at the earth with the force of a mighty hurricane. And with a lot of damage to boot. So to give you an idea, that initial landing hitbox does 50. Plus you're getting what look to be a couple of bursts of 8 from the air bursts themselves as they strike out from your landing point. It also does damage shortly behind you as well with the burst, which pulls enemies into the other wind bursts. So it's a total of 66 damage. That is, once you start it, the enemies can't stop it, which is one of the things that I like the most about it. Plus, it's very hard hitting. Great for those builds where you just want to stack up damage percentage. And it's got a 6-second cooldown, so kind of about average. But some of that cooldown is eaten up by the time that you're invulnerable and knocking enemies away with the typhoon-like winds. So you've got plenty of room to use this for whatever you want. And because it pushes enemies away from your landing points, it gives you plenty of room to breathe against regular mobs. And against enemies that are resistant to knockback or bosses, this is one of those things that you use basically to get in some quick damage, maybe reposition. I would say against like bigger enemies like macho ghouls or stone golems, you want to use it after they've attacked so that you can hit them for some big damage, or jump over them as they're approaching you and try to hit them from the other side with the backward spread of the spell. Definitely a high damage. It's low risk, high reward, and that's definitely what you really want out of a spell. So, what is the signature? It's 5 of those. The big hitbox only hits for 30 now, but because of how the spell works, you're just juggling enemies back and forth between your hitboxes, which makes it very easy to keep juggling enemies around. As you can see, the sort of damage numbers we can hit are pretty nuts. Like, without any critical hits, the full brunt of the spell does 194. Like, nearly 200 damage for this spell by itself. And of course, the whole time you're jumping around like a crack-addicted ape, you are very much invulnerable to damage. So, once this spell gets started, you're not getting knocked out of it. You're just gonna keep going. So, overall, my thoughts on this spell, very, very good. Like, I love this spell to freaking death. Now, that having been said, I don't think it's quite S tier because against enemies that aren't affected by knockback, you can still be clipped out of it after you land. So you can put yourself in a bad position, which means that it suffers a little bit on ease of use. But otherwise, I think this is a great spell. Like, I would actually rank this kind of near the top of A tier. Again, just misses out on S tier because it's one of those spells that can put you in harm's way, but it doesn't do so willingly. It's not like these two spells that are like, yeah, we'll keep you in the air for a while, but then we're gonna drop you right onto your enemy's waiting spear. No, this spell moves you and makes you land with a huge amount of force. It's mobile, it's got a lot of invulnerability frames. You know what? A lot of the same arguments could be made about Blazing Lariat, but I put that in S tier. Fuck it. I think it belongs. I change my own mind by listening to my own rhetoric. So if some of you disagree with that, my thought is try it. Try it out for yourself. See what you think. I really think you might be pleasantly surprised with how well Airborne Slam functions. So let's move away from Airborne Slam now. Let's talk about Fading Petal. Fading Petal is one of those spells that has multiple uses. So in order to get the real cooldown value, looks like we've got about, what is that, roughly 4 seconds per charge? Yeah, it looks like about 4 seconds per charge. Yeah, 4 seconds per charge. And what it does is it launches a blade of air from moving towards you in the direction you're facing about, oh, what is that, about mid-screen length roughly? And it drags enemies toward you, which means that the whole idea for this spell is that it's supposed to be more of an aggressive combo piece. It also leaves enemies slowed, so for enemies that are immune to knockback effects, you can just use this to slow them, and then run around and reposition yourself. Now, it's, as you can see, it's doing multiple hits of damage. I want to say it does 4 hits for 8 damage each, so you're getting about 32 damage out of it. And you can just straight up see it if you cast it at maximum range. Like this time, it just the whole thing did a critical hit, but yes, it's about 32 damage, so it's actually a pretty decently damaging combo piece too. So what you can do with this spell is do something like set up Cardus Prime, drag the enemies into yourself, and then just keep hitting them while they're in constant hit stun. This is a great way of setting up a nice, strong combo build, and I have used it for that, even though I like... God, what is the name of it? This is going to tear me up until I actually look it up. Aqua Vortex. Even though I like Aqua Vortex better for that role, don't get me wrong, Fading Petal does just fine, though I think it works with slightly different combo pieces a little bit better. As for the signature, what we've got here is something that drags enemies into a central vortex, blasts them with air, and then pushes them away. And it does it from a pretty big distance. Like, this is one of those things where if you can time it properly, what you can do is set off that signature in the middle of a combo as your combo finisher, and finish for just a gigantic wallop of damage. Looks like the whole thing does about 150. Yeah, 150 looks to be about the consensus, so it's, as far as signatures go, it's okay damage. It's the versatility of the spell that I think is really interesting. And yeah, even if you have an enemy centered right in the middle of it, they still take the full brunt of the damage, and they're slowed afterwards, so again, a little bit of versatility there. Not the greatest for combo ability, but because... Oh, nope, I was wrong about that. So after you cast it, you are stuck in place until the final burst goes off, so you can't necessarily follow the enemy's knockback as they're being juggled around. You just have to wait until the third burst and then start moving. So not totally great for combo ability, but also not horrible. So where would I put Fading Petal on the tier list? My thought is this seems like low A, which of course still means it's a freaking fantastic spell. I do really like Fading Petal. I have a soft spot for combo builds, and the idea that this one gets multiple uses before it goes fully on cooldown, I particularly like that. As far as where in the tier list it goes, it's a bit more niche than some of the other spells. Like, it doesn't quite have the range of Flame Cleaver, nor does it punch through projectiles like Flame Cleaver. I prefer Frost Scimitar over it. And Aqua Breaker, Exploding Fireball, and Ice Spear all hit harder. In the case of Ice Spear, with a piercing and freeze effect. Yeah, actually, I think bottom of A tier is about the right placement for Fading Petal. I think what we have here is a versatile and strong combo piece that is a little bit difficult to use, because if you use it like when you're right in an enemy's face like this, you can very easily just get mollywopped while you're waiting for the spell to hit them. I also would like to point out that it's very easy to accidentally throw both casts at the same time. Because the spell casts very quickly, it's very easy to accidentally throw out both uses of the spell at the same time, which you don't necessarily always want. Like, if you're trying to use it for a combo, you have to quick tap it, and then do your thing, and then when you want to use it again, quick tap it, because otherwise you're just going to use both. Let me wait for the spell to recharge here, because otherwise you're going to throw out both uses of the spell. That's a little counterintuitive as far as ease of use is concerned. So I still think it's good, but it has a learning curve. You have to conquer that learning curve before you can really get anywhere. Now let's talk about Shearing Chain. This is a Dark Katana build's dream spell. First of all, it moves you forward while you're casting it. Absolutely fantastic. Second of all, it scores multiple hits. Plenty of opportunities for criticals. Like you saw there, like I'm trying to give you the damage numbers without critical hits involved. There we go. So it does a total of 69 damage. Nice. It does a lot of hits for 6 and then one at the end for 15. So if we do ourselves a little bit of quick match, that means that everything up to that is doing 54 divided by 6. It means you've got 9 hits for 6 and then 1 for 15. And it's really easy to get enemies caught up in that because the air blades go out from you while you're moving forward. Like, this is like pissed off Aang levels of airbending power here. I love it. I love it so much. I'm not a big fan of melee builds, as you know, but it's hard to deny what they can do in this game, and this is one of the reasons why. Now, as far as the signature, what you've got is enough range to qualify as a projectile while still being melee. And looks like here we've got a bunch of hits for 10. It looks like the same number of hits for 10. Okay, it's definitely more hits, plus we had a critical in there for 15, but it looks like the total damage is 170. Yes. I guess so. We've got pretty good damage that's really easy to score critical hits on. We've got a huge amount of range. We've got some movement that goes along with it, so works well with soccer cleats builds as well. Got that Dark Katana synergy. A lot of range. As you can see, we don't even have to be very close to the enemies that we're striking. We're still hitting this far dummy over here for a decent amount of damage. Overall, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this. This spell gets you a little bit of everything. Also, I forgot to mention this when I was just talking about the spell in general, but 5.5 second cooldown, so it's a little on the shorter end of the spells that we've reviewed today. Save for Fading Petal, but that's 2 4-second cooldowns, so make of that what you will. Shearing Chain. There really is no place for Shearing Chain but S tier. Like, I would put it either equal to or above Frost Fan myself. I'm gonna say equal to partially because I think it looks cool to have the two spell arcs facing different directions. It's stupid, but it's my list. But just the sheer amount of damage and ease of use is what gets it up there for me. Versatility-wise, most of it comes from the idea that you've got a giant amount of range on the signature cast, and if you're using this at the end of a melee combo build, there's a good chance that you can throw this out, and then either it be a signature when you do so, or throw it out and then hit your signature afterwards. Now, admittedly, you can be knocked out of the spell if you get clipped while you're casting. So let's quick test. All right, so no, you can't dash cancel out of it once you start. So that's one downside of the spell, is that you can't dash cancel out of it once you've started casting. But it does. The spell comes with its own baked-in movement, which actually you get more movement from the regular version than you do from the signature version. And that's because the blades are much shorter in the regular version. Now, I definitely stand by my S tier ranking, but if some of you think that it should be bumped down to A tier, I can certainly understand that. That having been said, I think this is definitely one of the best spells you can get for a melee combo build. It's also just plain good for so many other builds out there. Like, there's a lot you can do with Shearing Chain. Like, you can use it as kind of like a versatile way to mix in some melee with your projectile builds. Like, it really does. Like I said, you can use it with your soccer cleats builds. It's versatile enough to go in multiple builds, even if you can't use it very, very creatively outside of that. So take it as you will, but I love Shearing Chain. Inversely, let's talk about Spiraling Typhoon. So this is supposed to be high risk, high reward. As you can see by all the damage that you're doing, it does count as melee, so this is also a good finishing point for your Dark Katana builds. But also, as you can see, the spell just lasts a while. Like, you're sitting there for quite a bit after you cast it. But you can dash cancel out of it, so if you cast it and find yourself in a bit of a pickle, you can just get out of there. So that's good. Now you're doing a total of 85 damage, which means you're doing 12 hits for 5, and then that final hit for 25. Now, you might not be able to get the enemies with every hit, but as you can see, there's also a bit of a vacuum box that kind of soaks your enemies into it from a little bit of a distance. And while you're casting it, you can kind of circle it around to... Well, not circle it around, but you can re-aim it within a short range to suck more enemies into it and just catch them out if they're being stupid. Now, the signature, as you can see, it does a huge amount of damage. Well, I guess not more than Airborne Slam, though. But it also takes a while to get to all that damage. And if the enemy is in any way immune to knockback, you're probably not going to get all that damage out. Definitely good for fishing for criticals, because you are doing an absurd amount of damage. Well, you're doing an absurd number of hits. So, looks like it does 170 damage at base after all those hits. And I'm having a hard time getting it in such a way that we don't get any critical hits, but as you can see, that is okay because we can just do math. Or just get lucky. And that time was 175, so wait a minute, was the critical hits actually lowering damage, or was I wrong about its base? 107. Spiraling Typhoon, what are you doing to me? Alright, it's doing so many hits that I'm actually having a hard time getting a consistent damage number. So I guess the base damage is being between 170 and 175? I'm so confused. How did I get 175? How did we get here? Well, anyway, you get the idea. The whole point of this spell is high risk, high reward. Can you dash cancel out of the big boy version if you're in trouble? Yes. Now, that having been said, my issue with this spell is that against enemies that are immune to knockback, or enemies that are... well, bosses. I don't know why I'm trying to qualify that. Bosses, you're not likely to get the full spell out, like especially against level 3 and up bosses that have shorter vulnerability windows. Spiraling Typhoon is going to hold you in position long enough that they're going to get their barrier back before you can really finish out the spell. So I think how useful the spell is goes down in complete proportion to how high of a level of boss you're facing. And especially if you're up against like the Burst Mage or Sura, who tend to get their hit stun barriers back pretty fast, this spell could be an active detriment. So, do I think it belongs in D tier? No, but I do think it has the more capacity for getting you in trouble than not. I think I would put it... Honestly, not much goes below the snowflakes. Yeah, I think about there. It just holds you still too long, which stunts both ease of use and versatility scores. Just because it has high damage doesn't mean that that's the whole story. And I think Spiraling Typhoon could stand to change a little bit if we wanted to make it better somehow. How would we make it better? Make it so that the vacuum burst and the hits come out faster. Like, that's really all there is to it. It just needs to come out faster, because you can already dash cancel out of it. But just the idea that it holds you still for so long? No, that's not where it's at. Alright, Wind Flurry. We're up to Wind Flurry. This one is a very interesting one, because the whole point of this spell isn't damage. It just does 7 hits for 5 damage. But as you can see, all 7 of those charges come back super, super fast, so you can throw this spell out very quickly. Like, you can almost just do an entire run based on Wind Flurry by itself, just because of how quick the cooldown is. Like, here you go. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Like, the whole spell, like, all 7 charges come back within 2 seconds. Like, if I'm seeing this correctly, it's, 0.3 of a second per charge, which means you're getting the whole spell back in 2.1 seconds. That's very quick, and you don't have to wait for the whole spell to come back. As soon as you hit 3 charges, you can cast it again. So this is... Also, it's got piercing properties, which means it's good for crowd control. It's got pretty good range. Like, it's not infinite range like Aqua Beam or anything, but it's got good range. I suppose I should also now point out the technicality that Aqua Beam doesn't technically have infinite range, it just kind of behaves that way. Alright, so how does the signature work? Well, first of all, it does a heck of a lot more damage. It goes from 35 to obviously close to 170. This is another one of those things where it scores critical hits so frequently that it's hard to get a proper gauge on how much damage it's doing. But we can extrapolate out and say if I got 2 critical hits, the critical hits are 4 damage above normal, which means that this spell has a 160 damage base on it. Not bad for something that started at 35. And of course, because you're scoring so many hits, this makes it really good on critical hit builds, whether you're focused on Dark Katana or not. If you have basically any amount of like minor damage bonus and some amount of critical hit chance boost, this does great. Also, as you can see, it does this weird thing where it like bends around to target other enemies while you're using it. Like, it's... I don't know how they program that, honestly, but if you can get an enemy caught in multiple streams, they can take more than the 160, which is really nice. I might have just also got a lot of critical hits against that one. So yeah, this one is interesting. I think Wind Flurry is really fun, especially on builds where you just don't have a lot of cooldown. So if you have any sort of cooldown boost at all, you can literally be throwing this spell out at all times. That in and of itself is fun. I think the large range and the signature damage is also really good. What's sort of bringing this one a little bit down for me is just that it's... like, thinking more about it, like, I think what does it for me with this spell is its low damage and its normal cast. Like, I'm not willing to dock it too many points for that, but yeah, it's got good range, it's comes back super, super fast, so it's there and ready to use and abuse quickly. What it is that it's got a learning curve, so actually using it easy. Remembering that you can pretty much always hit the button and it will always be there, that's the hard part. Even still, I don't have the heart to rate it super low, so I think this one, I would put... where would I put this one? I think it's right around the Aqua Breaker range. It's kind of that, like, mid-A tier. Either slightly below or slightly above. Like, I would put it absolutely equal to if I could. It just... what it loses out in power, it gains in speed. And that's kind of what I'm thinking here. Yeah, I think that sounds fair. Wind Flurry is one of those spells that really benefits from just small little boosts here and there. A small little damage boost will take it from doing 5 damage per hit to 6 damage per hit, which of course over the number of hits makes it hit a lot harder. With how many hits it does, it's really easy to land criticals. You get enough of critical hit chance, this thing will really pop off. So yeah, I like Wind Flurry, and even though I underrate it when I'm seeing it in game, when I'm actually using it, I'm having a good time. So hey, maybe that means you'll have a good time with it too. I don't know, I like it. So let's go ahead and move on to Storm Draft. Storm Draft is a range spell that has looks like about a 4-second cooldown per projectile. Yep, 4-second cooldown per use. It sends a projectile out a decent ways, does 20 damage with a giant amount of knockback. Now, against enemies that are immune to knockback, that's just a 20 damage shot in the face. You would rather have Flame Cleaver against, like, a Macho Ghoul, a Stone Golem, a Crusher, something like that. Against a regular enemy, this is great for knocking them into pits, and it also has a special interaction where if you knock them into a wall, they take bonus damage, and in this case, it's more damage than the projectile did. Hey, look at that, the 30 damage for hitting them into a wall with it. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I think if you knock them into a wall, that damage has the capability of being a critical hit as well. Like, I'm trying to create that, but it's not happening. So, don't take my word for it. It is possible that damage is impossible to be critical damage. But, you know, you get the idea. You knock an enemy in... well, obviously, you knock an enemy into a pit, it's gone. You knock an enemy into a wall, and they just take bonus damage. It's a unique interaction for this spell specifically. Wall splat damage is not a common occurrence in the game. Like, even other spells that can easily do it, like, say, Tidal Blast, don't have this bonus. So this is a Storm Draft unique. Unlike Fading Petal, you can't just hold the button down and get both shots, like, back to back. You have to input them separately. And also, I just proved it, you can get critical damage on the wall splat. So definitely good to use in enclosed rooms where you've got walls nearby to knock them into. You can knock enemies into traps with this, do it from a distance, why not? You've got quite a bit of real estate to hit enemies with this. Now, obviously, if you hit them like right at the tail end of it, it's not going to do a huge amount of knockback, so it is kind of proportional to how much range is left on your spell. But again, if you just need an enemy out of your face, that's what this is for. But that versatility with wall splats also gives this spell an added use that makes it more unique, and I appreciate that. As far as its signature cast, you just get a wall of storm drafts, which means you can just juggle enemies against a wall and get a lot of damage that way. You just get four waves of these projectiles doing their thing. And you see there, those guys we got for 200. Overall, I think this is a unique spell with some fun interactions. I think it doesn't punch through projectiles like Flame Cleaver does, but it does just block them. And which means this spell also has a bit of a defensive function. Cuts down on the ease of use a bit, I will admit, but it does mean that this spell has multiple uses for multiple situations. So what it lacks for ease of use, it gains in versatility. So where would I place this on the list? Solid B tier, I think. I think I would put it probably above Searing Crown, below Flame Breath. That seems like about the most appropriate place for Storm Draft, if you ask me. The spell has a lot of things that it can do. It's different things in different situations, but I would go so far as to say it doesn't do any of them particularly well. It's a jack of all trades, master of none. Which, to me, sounds like B-tier territory. Alright, let's talk about Cyclone Boomerang. This spell, when you pick it up just as a regular spell, ain't so great. When you have it enhanced, it has that secondary boomerang on its return trip that does extra damage. And it also draws enemies into you while keeping them stunned so you can combo them. It's not quite as good at that as, say, Aqua Vortex or Fading Petal, but it has greater range in doing so. That secondary, Phantom Boomerang does quite a bit as well. It obviously can be used for combo ability. And again, I would argue it does so pretty nicely. It's just you're not going to be getting a long combo string out of this. You're going to be getting this, adding on some damage, and then getting out of there before the enemies get out of their hit stun. You could also do something like that and just drag them into a Volt Pinball or a Cardus Prime. Now, one of the two things that's really good about Cyclone Boomerang, first of all, it's a nice ranged option with multiple hitboxes, so it can keep enemies stunned for a little bit. It does 40 damage, but it does so on a 4-second cooldown, which outside of Wind Flurry is the best cooldown we've seen on a single-use spell. And I wouldn't call that accurate because Wind Flurry technically has 7 uses. You just can't choose to use only one at a time. Yeah, it's 2 hits for 15 and another for 10 that drags enemies towards you. Now, in certain situations, what you can use that for is to throw out the boomerang and then just walk away and allow yourself a chance to reposition instead of feeling like you have to combo. You don't. You can use this in a bid to buy yourself some space. but it's also really good at comboing, like I've already said. Now, the signature. Again, does a lot of critical hits, but as you see, we got over 200 damage on that. That was with criticals. Without criticals, you're getting 200. My goodness, I didn't think it did that much damage. And it draws the enemy into... Okay, so yes, this spell is very high damage when used as a signature, because you're just going ham with the boomerangs. This time it only got 175, so we must have missed 25 damage somewhere, so I guess that depending on your distance from the enemy, you can miss some damage. That time we got 212, so the damage is inconsistent, but it is high, like, no matter what we're doing. Like, even 80 on one that was way over there and just getting caught up in the crossfire, not bad. And because it pierces, it's very good for crowd control. Like, what can I say? Cyclone Boomerang is really damn good. One problem I do have with it, projectile clash. This does not punch through projectiles like Flame Cleaver does. It can get walled by enemy projectiles, which gives it the same problems that I talked about with Exploding Fireball. Like, if your enemies are throwing out a bunch of projectiles, it's very possible for this to just get clipped, and then you lose the benefit of the boomerang. Now, the good news is it comes back quickly. It's got a very forgiving cooldown. But the bad news is you've lost out on that crowd control and need to either back up or just dodge around the enemies until you have a chance to use it again to regain that crowd control. So hopefully you've got more than one spell that's at least decent at crowd control. Against bosses, it's great for combos. The signature does a ton of damage. Not a whole lot of bad that I can say about it against bosses. Just against enemies with projectiles is where it kind of falls apart. And I'm not even going to say fall apart, because honestly, I think it does a fine job. Like, I think it's better than Exploding Fireball, and again, about equal to Aqua Breaker, so we'll put it on the other side of Aqua Breaker. It does a lot, it does it well, you just have to be careful when using it around enemies with projectiles, like the Chaos Mages. Like, they're fan of dark balls. Can actually put this one to rest, like, really badly. So, something to keep in mind, but otherwise not a bad spell. Just loses out a little bit on ease of use because of projectile clash. Speaking of projectile clash, let's talk to the king of it, Blurring Falconry. Blurring Falconry is another multi-use spell. You get 3 uses, and you throw birds at people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So each one does about 21 damage, not accounting for critical hits. And as you can see, as soon as it hits an enemy, it locks onto that enemy, but it doesn't necessarily negate doing damage and hit stun, which is the important part, to other enemies around it. Now, again, the unfortunate part is that Blurring Falconry can be clipped by enemy projectiles. And as you can see, it takes a while to get all 3 charges back. Like, this is another spell where you just hold down the button, you can get all the charges to come out at once, which in most situations is what you want, but sometimes you need to spread out the falcons. You'll go 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. Because at its core, this is not a spell that's about damage, this is a spell that's about crowd control. You want to use this spell to keep enemies from advancing too quickly, give yourself some breathing room, and set up something a little bit bigger, like a crashing meteor, for example. So, and at that, it does its job very well. As you can see, we've got about a 4-second cooldown per charge, which is why it seems like it has such a long cooldown. Now, being what it is, as soon as you get 1 charge back, you can throw another bird out, and that's all well and good. It just takes a while to get all 3 of them back. So sometimes you'll find yourself waiting outside of a room for your spell to come back before you engage a group of enemies. But yeah, and like I said, this is the king of projectile clash, but not in a good way, because these guys hit a projectile, they just get erased. This is... Like, there was a concept that I heard about in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 called projectile HP. If we go by that and how well they do in a projectile clash, these guys lose all the time. It's not like Flame Cleaver that just breaks through projectiles without thinking about it. These guys have very little stopping power. So don't expect these guys to last out a war of attrition. You're using them to buy yourself some time. As far as the signature cast, this gets you one giant bird that turns into 4 smaller birds. And the 4 smaller birds do exactly what you think they do. About 21 damage and a bunch of hit stun. As you can see, it's low damage, but again, the whole point is to throw this out as, in this case, a combo starter or a combo linker, and then the whole idea is to go in with other things to continue doing damage. At least when you're using it against bosses. In crowds, you just want to throw this out there as a giant distraction, and then reposition or get in there with other spells to try to take out the enemy. That's kind of what you're looking for. So, what do I think of this spell in general? This is one that I'm conflicted on, because you guys know how I feel about birds. I love me some birds. Trust me, these two can testify. But this spell is a little underwhelming. Like, could it be helped if we were to maybe up the initial damage from 3 to 4? Sure, that would be something. Could we make it so that maybe they could survive clashing with other projectiles more frequently? That would be a big help. That is the spell's greatest weakness. Because velocity and range are certainly not problems. It's just that in situations where projectile clash comes into question, these guys start to falter. And I wouldn't bring that up if projectiles weren't such a commonplace thing in this game. And trust me, that will impact your success rate with this spell. So, where do I put the spell? My feelings... Here's the thing, I have a bias because it's birds. But if I remove that bias, I think we're looking at low B tier? Like, kind of in that same area as homing flares, I guess? In the long run, I would rather use the homing flares, but I would rather have Inferno Beam than the birds. Not you guys are safe. So, yeah. I really think that how badly the birds do in projectile clash hurts the spell's overall usability. Like, it just creates so many issues. Like I said, the reason why that's an issue is because there's projectiles everywhere in this game. It's a game about magic. How could there not be? Okay. Fortunately, we've got some of the best spells coming in at last. And we're going to start by talking about Gust Volley. Gust Volley is a shotgun spell. One could say it's the shotgun spell. So, from a distance, what you have is a nice big range, with each projectile doing 12 damage and having a piercing effect. As you can see, it hits in a nice big cone, so you've got plenty of room to just throw it out there and knock enemies away. When you get up close, well, that's why we call it a shotgun. With now you hitting with just about every projectile. You're not even hitting with all the projectiles, because there's still more that form off to either side. But yeah, you're hitting for a gigantic amount of damage all at once. This is thy Lord of Burst damage. It's really strong. You're just punching holes in enemy defenses with this. Now, you might think that doing damage at a long range with this doesn't matter because you're not doing much damage, but if you can interrupt an enemy spellcaster or an enemy archer out of one of their spells, that's saving you a lot of harassment. Like, let's say you've got one of those lightning mages trying to barrel down on you with their homing thunderbolts. You can just be like, and you'll be fine. You've canceled one of their spells and something that's going to put you at risk. That is what we're looking for when you're using it at range. That's why the crowd control is important. And then, of course, at close range, that's when you get the killer damage. Look at that, 108 damage on a basic cast. Like, it's hard to understate that, or I should say, it's hard to overstate that. My apologies, wrong word. It's so good. So, and it's cooldown time. 5.5 seconds. Not bad. Not bad at all. So, what happens when we use this? Well, we essentially go from the regular shotgun to the super shotgun, because now we're just firing the spell 3 times. See that 234 damage? That's big. That's a lot of damage. Now, you can't necessarily dash cancel this one, which is something I've been forgetting to check with some of the other spells, admittedly. Most of the air spells are rather quick, though, so you don't really need to dash cancel out of them. It comes out fast enough. But if you need to, you can dash cancel out of the signature version. So, again, something to think about, at least after the second one, I think. Yep, after the second one, you can dash cancel out of it, but at that point, you might as well just finish the spell. Honestly, I don't have a lot else to say about Gust Volley. I wanted to get the numbers out there, give you the cooldown, show you what it's used for, plop it in S tier, and call it a day. Now, I think it's a little bit worse than Frost Fan because it doesn't have the freeze status effect. But it's still so good. Like, I kind of put it on even keel with Shearing Chain. Like, they're both just so amazingly strong. Definitely, to me, those are the standout spells of the air element, but you still have one more spell to talk about, and this is another spell that has some unique properties, so let's just get right into it. Let's talk Sonic Breaker. Now, Sonic Breaker, when you cast it out, just sends a load of sonic booms. You're like Guile from Street Fighter II Rainbow Edition. Each boom does 4 damage, and yeah, they pierce. And even if they projectile clash, which again, these ones don't have a lot of projectile HP, if that's the term you want to use, why don't you call it durability? You know what? Shut up. Even if they don't have a lot of durability, you're throwing out so many of them that you're gonna get through. You're gonna get some work done. But, let's see, also, this spell has about a 5-second cooldown. Not bad. So now I hear you saying, okay, so it throws a lot of projectiles. Where does the unique part come in? Well, if you hold down the button, you can actually control these babies like fly-by-wire missiles. And each time you change direction, it counts as a new hitbox. So what you do is something like that. You just wiggle them on top of the enemy. It goes for ridiculously huge hit stun, and also really big damage. See, 168 damage. Huge. The downside, of course, is that you can't necessarily focus that on everything around you. So if you've got a group of enemies barreling down around you, you've really got to focus that. You've got to divide your focus and keep all of them from reaching you. You're like a turret. You are very much a sitting duck. But as soon as you let the spell go, you can dash. So you can stop fly-by-wire mode whenever you want if you need to get out of danger. So, Signature Cast. It's basically just the really, really big version of Sonic Breakers. Like, you even get the fly-by-wire for the same amount of time. But you get so many Sonic booms. And yeah, that's the kind of damage we're talking about. So, it's damage potential through the roof. Versatility through the roof. Ease of use. It's a little hard to remember that you've got the fly-by-wire when you're in a sticky situation. But you can... This is a self-contained ultra combo right here. Like, you throw this out, and then you can just do that. Like, wiggle them in little circles, and just get massive damage. Like, this is very much a boss killer spell. But they also pierce, so it's also a rune clearer. Like, just the idea that you've got that fly-by-wire mode is absolutely incredible. It puts Sonic Breaker almost in a tier of its own. Like, you guys know how much I like Tracer Barrage and why I like Tracer Barrage. This takes that concept and turns it up to 11. Like, I almost feel like I should add a whole nother tier just for Sonic Breaker. Like, is that possible? Like, can I just add a tier? Here we go. Add a row above. Cool. And we're just gonna... Here we go. Oops. There we go. Sonic Breaker tier. There we go. And that's it. That's the air element. If you're having trouble with the game, just put on Sonic Breaker. Sonic Breaker literally does everything for you. Like, that fly-by-wire mode, when... Like, here's the thing. I think the piercing property only happens when the spell is enhanced, so it doesn't start that way. Unless you take it as a signature. And then the spell becomes absolutely balls to the walls broken. Like, this spell, like, you've seen it for yourself. I don't need to keep harping on about it. Like, this is the opposite, very much the opposite of Heroic Maelstrom or Heroic Leap. This spell puts you at the furthest thing from danger you can possibly imagine. The one downside is that against bosses that recover from their hit stun faster and get their barrier back faster, you can't pump out as much damage against them as you would like. But then let go of the fly-by-wire mode and start dodging again. And you're still getting a giant amount of damage. Like, it doesn't take much to... Whoops, I dashed out of it. I'm so smart. Like, it doesn't take much. I'm holding the wrong button. What is wrong with me? Yeah, it doesn't take much for this to start to add up. So, yeah, that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of it down below. In the comments, in my social media, whatever. If you have a disagreement, of course, like I said, be civil. I am completely willing to hear you out on why you think something should move up or move down. But with that in mind, be prepared for me to defend my decisions. And that's all I've got for you. So thank you very much for coming and spending some of your free time here with me today. I very much appreciate your support. And yes, the next few parts will definitely be coming much sooner than this one. I promise. I actually do want to complete this project. So, again, thank you very much for your support. I love you guys very much, and I will see you in the next one. You all have a beautiful rest of your day. And take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye now.